I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and before we begin, don't forget to subscribe for thoughtful stories that go beyond the headlines. Some of the most emotional moments in life don't happen under bright studio lights or in front of an audience. They happen quietly, behind closed doors, where no camera can soften the weight of change. Recently, fans noticed a deeply emotional moment involving Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos, and naturally, questions began to swirl. What happened? Why did Kelly appear so moved? Tonight, we're not here to chase rumors or exaggerate pain. Instead, we're going to explore the real story behind a difficult transition, one rooted not in heartbreak, but in growth, honesty, and the complicated reality of long term partnership. A love story that began long before fame. Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelo's story began in the mid 1990s on the set of All My Children, where a chance meeting sparked a connection that neither of them could have predicted would last decades. Their chemistry was instant, undeniable, and refreshingly real. In 1996, they shocked everyone by eloping to Las Vegas, choosing love over expectations, and building a life together on their own terms. Over the years, they welcomed 3 children, navigated demanding careers, and grew up together in the public eye. To many fans, they weren't just celebrities, they were proof that real love could survive Hollywood, fame, and time. The image of a perfect partnership. For decades, Kelly and Mark were seen as the gold standard of celebrity relationships. Their playful banter, mutual respect, and openness about marriage made them relatable in a way few public couples manage. When Mark joined live alongside Kelly, audiences were given a rare glimpse into a real marriage unfolding in real time. Their chemistry wasn't scripted, it was built on shared history, private jokes, and years of understanding each other's rhythms. Watching them together felt less like a show and more like being invited into someone's living room. When working together becomes complicated. But what many people forget is that working together, especially for a married couple, comes with its own challenges. Kelly and Mark weren't just spouses anymore. They were co-workers, creative partners, and public figures sharing a daily platform. While this closeness strengthened their bond in many ways, it also blurred boundaries. Spending nearly every waking hour together left little room for individual growth, reflection, or space to recharge. Over time, even the strongest partnerships can feel strained when personal and professional lives become too intertwined. The pressure. No one sees. Behind the laughter and smooth on-air exchanges was a level of pressure most people never see. Live television is demanding, emotionally taxing, and unforgiving. Kelly carried the weight of leading a long-running show, while Mark balanced acting projects, public expectations, and the reality of stepping into a role that constantly compared him to her legacy. For both of them, the pressure to always appear perfect added an invisible strain that built quietly over time. Mark's difficult realization. Eventually, Mark came to a realization that wasn't about love fading or conflict exploding, it was about sustainability. He recognized that continuing in the same professional setup might not be healthy for either of them long term. Stepping back didn't mean stepping away from Kelly as a husband. It meant reassessing how they could support each other as individuals without losing themselves in the process. Making that decision required honesty, humility, and courage. The moment that changed everything. When Mark shared his thoughts with Kelly, it wasn't an argument or a dramatic confrontation. It was a vulnerable conversation filled with emotion and uncertainty. Kelly listened as Mark explained that he needed to create space for growth, not distance. Hearing that was deeply emotional for her, not because she felt abandoned, but because change, even necessary change, can feel like loss. Tears came not from anger, but from the realization that a chapter she cherished was coming to an end. Kelly's emotional response. Kelly has never hidden her feelings, and during a recent moment on Live, viewers saw that honesty firsthand. Her voice wavered, her eyes filled, and for a brief moment, the polished host stepped aside, revealing the woman underneath. She spoke openly about how difficult it was to imagine the show without Mark beside her every day. It wasn't about fear of being alone, it was about grieving a shared routine, a partnership that had become part of her identity. Not a goodbye, but a shift. It's important to be clear. This was not a breakup, a separation, or the end of their marriage. Kelly and Mark remained deeply committed to each other and their family. What changed was the structure of how they worked together publicly. Sometimes love means recognizing when something needs to evolve, even if it hurts. Mark's decision was not about leaving Kelly, but about protecting both of them from burnout and resentment. Loving someone enough to step back. One of the most powerful aspects of this story is the intention behind Mark's choice. He expressed concern that the constant pressure and lack of separation could eventually take an emotional toll on Kelly. Rather than waiting for that to happen, he chose to act. Leaving a role you enjoy to protect someone you love isn't easy. It requires putting ego aside and prioritizing long-term well-being over short-term comfort. Memories that make change harder. For Kelly, the change stirred memories of their early years together. She reflected on their first conversations, the thrill of their elopement, and the years spent building a family while chasing dreams. Those memories didn't disappear with Mark's decision, but they made the transition more emotional. When you've shared so much history with someone, even small shifts can feel monumental. Strength, found in vulnerability. In private moments, away from the cameras, Kelly allowed herself to feel everything. The sadness, the uncertainty, and the fear that naturally comes with change. But within that vulnerability, she also rediscovered her strength. She remembered that she is more than a role, more than a partnership. She is a woman who built a career, raised a family, and earned her place through resilience and authenticity. A public figure, a private human. One of the reasons Kelly's emotional moment resonated with so many people is because it felt real. Viewers saw themselves in her reaction. Anyone who has experienced a major life transition understands that mixture of gratitude for what was and fear of what's next. Kelly's tears weren't a sign of weakness. They were proof of how deeply she cares. Mark's message to Kelly. After the emotional episode, Mark shared a heartfelt message expressing his support for Kelly. He acknowledged how difficult the transition had been and emphasized that his decision came from a place of love and respect. He made it clear that he remains her biggest supporter, both privately and publicly. His words reassured fans that while circumstances may change, the foundation of their relationship remains solid. The outpouring of support fans quickly rallied around Kelly, flooding social media with messages of encouragement and understanding. Many thanked her for being honest and showing that even strong, successful women struggle with change. Others praised Mark for making a thoughtful decision rooted in care rather than ego. Together, their transparency sparked conversations about marriage, boundaries, and the importance of personal growth within relationships, continuing the journey on Live. As Live moves forward, Kelly continues to bring the same warmth, humor, and professionalism that made the show a success in the first place. While Mark's presence on the daily broadcast may change, his influence and support remain very much part of her life. The show evolves, just like people do, and Kelly is embracing that evolution with grace. What this story teaches us. This isn't a story about heartbreak or endings. It's about adaptation, about recognizing when something needs to shift and having the courage to face that reality honestly. Kelly and Mark's experience reminds us that love doesn't always look like staying the same forever. Sometimes love looks like growth, space, and trust. A partnership. Beyond the spotlight. At the heart of it all, Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos remain partners, not because they share a stage, but because they share values, history, and commitment. Their relationship has weathered fame, parenting, career changes, and now another chapter of evolution. And through it all, they continue to show that real partnership isn't about perfection, but about choosing each other, even when the path forward changes. Closing thoughts. Change is never easy, especially when it touches something we love. Kelly's emotional moment wasn't a sign of something ending, but of something transforming. It was a reminder that behind every public figure is a human being navigating life just like the rest of us. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is allow yourself to feel, to adapt, and to move forward with honesty.